This is obviously an open and shut case right from the beginning with all of the witnesses and the physical evidence. And I don't think it probably could have been handled in any better fashion than it really was.
Reporter Ted Chirac first recorded the complaints of the owners of the gun shop where Sirhan bought his ammunition, Ben and Donna Herrick.
I gave a statement to the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department that Sirhan and two others had been in here about 6 weeks before. So they asked for some .357 armor-piercing tank ammo. We didn't have it for sale.
That's right. And they didn't even want her to testify because she wouldn't change her story.
Their former clerk, Larry Arnott, who actually made the sale, was impeached when he testified that Sirhan was with two other men.
Like the Arnott testimony, asking him if he sold the ammunition, and he said yes, and then they said he failed a lie detector test, and they have him identify the sales slip. And the sales slip definitely proves the fact that he was telling the truth, and they say the lie detector says he said he was telling a lie and then throwing him off the witness stand, you know, like it just discredited the man's testimony and made a fool out of him. And for no reason, because he was a prosecution witness to begin with. And it was the prosecution that did it to him, you know, and I don't like the smell of it.
I said that when we first started this investigation, you were a little girl at the time, but I said that we've interviewed 4,000 people, and we've done it because someday somebody, for purposes best known to themselves, regardless of the evidence, is going to try to prove that Sirhan didn't do it, that this was a conspiracy, that this is some big mysterious plan that, in spite of all the investigation, we haven't been able to uncover. We knew it would happen.
I was very unhappy with my encounter with the police department when I went down to the administration building. I was very much struck by their desire to fabricate a story and by their effort to strong-arm me mentally into stating that there were things that I did not agree with.
Some people who are interested in undermining confidence in the government of the United States, subversive people, will say this is some kind of a plot and so forth. And we anticipated all of this in advance.
If there's anything more to this, some of these witnesses may not live to testify again. I don't know how many people want to say this, but I am afraid.
But when there are witnesses that said Sirhan never got behind Senator Kennedy, and then there are medical reports saying he was shot from behind, isn't that a significant discrepancy?
Well, as I say, you apparently want all the witnesses, or would prefer to have all the witnesses sound like they'd memorize their testimony. I wouldn't. There was no significant discrepancy. Now, you and I are just arguing now. You apparently think there was a significant discrepancy. And if we stay here for 4 hours, I do not think I will conclude there was a significant discrepancy in the testimony.
They wrote me a very, very long and terrible letter that my son's going to be killed in the street one day, and they threatened, a real threatened letter, you know, which I give over to the FBI.
A scathing report on the LAPD from the human rights group Amnesty International. Here's ABC's Judy Muller.
The report is doubly damning. In a year-long study of both the LA Police Department and the Sheriff's Department, Amnesty International said officers and deputies regularly use excessive force out of all proportion to the threat posed by the victims, often in violation of international standards.
At times, it has amounted to torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment, where people have been beaten, tasered, shot, or attacked by police dogs. It is, frankly, an appalling record.
Does anybody pay attention to Amnesty International anymore? You know, these are a bunch of do-gooders and liberals. They came in, we cooperated with them fully, but that doesn't make it. We knew what the report was going to say. The sheriff knew what the report was going to say.
Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill, then to have no memory of having killed. Without memory of his deed, he cannot possibly feel guilt. Nor will he, of course, have any reason to fear being caught. And having been relieved of those uniquely American symptoms, guilt and fear, he cannot possibly give himself away.
I told them to build me an assassin. I wanted a killer from a world filled with killers, and they chose you.
It's a terrible thing to hate your mother. But I didn't always hate her.
The preceding is from Richard Condon's novel, The Manchurian Candidate, which in 1962 became a hit movie, in which Lawrence Harvey played Raymond Shaw, a highly decorated prisoner of war who was brainwashed by his North Korean captors to become a robot assassin programmed to murder the president. Unknown to millions of people who thrilled to this taut tale in theaters across America, the Central Intelligence Agency, at the time, through its MKULTRA program, was devoting large resources to see if by drugs, electroshock, or hypnotism, a robot assassin could in fact be created. Common wisdom, of course, holds that a person cannot be programmed to do something that he would find morally objectionable. But not everyone believes that.
After receiving a small dose of LSD, they're confused and undisciplined.
The notion that you can't be hypnotized to do something you're not morally inclined to do was clearly disproved by our government.
Dr. Philip Melanson is the author of the recently released book, The Robert Kennedy Assassination, in which he investigates the hypnoprogramming aspects of the Kennedy murder. Dr. Melanson has spent over a decade looking through government mind control files.
The experts that they had doing this kind of research believed you could do that. They demonstrated how it could be done both in their own practices and in their work for the government. And millions of dollars was spent and hundreds of people were worked on and were made to do those things. And the successful uses of hypno-programmed persons as couriers and spies is admitted by the government. The government refuses to admit assassination, but clearly they had that technology available as well. And it can be done. The mainstream of the medical profession and the experts think it can't be done or choose to believe it can't be done. But the broad group working for the government believed it could be done and demonstrated that they could do it.
From the moment Sirhan was caught with the smoking gun to this day as he serves a life sentence in a California prison, Sirhan claims to have no memory of killing Bobby Kennedy. In what appeared to be an open and shut case, Sirhan's lawyers never contested his guilt. They merely sought to prove him insane, incapable of planning the assassination. But the jury convicted Sirhan of first-degree premeditated murder. They concluded he was a politically motivated assassin, a lone gunman who was faking his amnesia to avoid punishment. But some experts investigating the assassination believe Sirhan's amnesia is genuine. They offer a highly controversial theory for the cause of Sirhan's lack of memory.
Sirhan's lack of memory for the murder of Robert Kennedy was genuine, and it was established by both the defense and the prosecution before the trial. Sirhan himself badly wanted to remember what had happened. After all, he was caught with a smoking gun, so he wanted very badly to remember, and he worked hard at it, but he was still unable to come up with any motive or any memory of the crime.
Sirhan remembers the events just prior to the shooting and just after his capture, but claims to have a lapse in memory during the actual shooting.
Do you remember drinking coffee? I remember being around the coffee. You don't remember anything at all after that? What do you remember when you got back and after you've had some coffee? I was choking like a son of a bitch. Choking? I was choking. Choking on what? They grabbed my throat. Oh, you mean after the shooting? Yeah. I see.
Psychiatrists for both the defense and prosecution testified that Sirhan did have amnesia for the assassination. But to this day, no psychiatrist has found any evidence of psychosis in Sirhan, which scientists consider another possible cause of amnesia. Melanson became convinced that Sirhan's lack of memory is the result of being hypnotized and programmed to kill.
After 15 years of analyzing the evidence and interviewing experts and witnesses, the only logical conclusion in this case, from my mind, is that Sirhan was a programmed assassin, programmed to show up shooting at Robert Kennedy, and programmed not to remember.
Is the programmed assassination theory merely the plot of a Hollywood movie? Or is it really possible to hypnotize someone to kill?